Please welcome Datadog's Senior Technical Advocate, Whitney Lee.
Thank you. Hello, friends. Thank you so much for being here today. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to talk about Wendy's digital transformation over these last 5 years. They've gone through a lot and have a lot to share. And so I'd like to welcome to the stage my friend, Wendy's VP of Architecture and Engineering, David Faircloth. Woo! Oh, that was a good one.
That was a good one. Finally.
So, when I think of Wendy's, what I think about, I have this memory of being a child, having like a cold chocolate frosty and hot order french fries, dipping the french fries, the salty french fries, into the sweet frosty.
Oh, yeah. The only way to do it.
And so what I think about is that, like, viscerally. But what I don't think about is technology. So what does tech mean at Wendy's?
Yeah, tech is everything. Long are the days gone of taking an order down with a pen and paper and then running back to the kitchen and handing it to somebody to fulfill your order. So technology is everything for us. It's the lifeblood of the company of how we do things. So it's pulling out your phone, ordering a square burger on your mobile app. It's the website. It's going to a store and ordering at a kiosk through the drive-through. All of those involve technology and how we do things. And it's diverse in how we do it. We have company stores, we have franchisees, and we have our crew people that we have to think about how is it going to impact them and what does that look like in the best way.
You talked about platform engineering too, though. So I'm thinking, are there like internal customers in terms of like the engineers who are using your platform?
Exactly. So when we talk about, the mobile app, for instance, is a great one to talk through. There's something that has to run that. There's those integration services behind the front end and what those look like. We have developers that are writing those. Okay. You have to have a platform to support that in a way where our developers can focus on writing code, not specifically how do I deploy to a Kubernetes cluster and have to know all the things about kubectl as well. So we brought in the idea of platform engineering to help with that so that our developers focus on what they're really good at, writing code. This
is a really weird and off-the-cuff question. Do you use Kubernetes to like manage any like fry drops, or do you have edge clusters?
We have some stuff that we're working on in the innovation lane for what that looks like for us. So we've done a few iterations of a edge platform that is running containers at the edge where we can do a lot of innovation type things. I'm not going to get into the details yet of what we're doing, but stay tuned in the news to see what's coming up.
I'm keeping David on his toes. That was totally an unplanned question. So we're talking about Wendy's transformation. Like, this is a story here today, but in order to do that transformation, you had to start from kind of a, not great place.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the before times and what things were like at Wendy's that inspired the transformation to begin with.
Yeah, in order to have a transformation, you have to have that bad time. We certainly had our fair share of that and what it looked like. We had a very highly complex system that nobody really understood how it worked. And that means that it broke in unexpected and complex ways. The more complexity you add into a system, the harder it is just to maintain and grow. So we had a lot of that. It meant that we spent all of our time firefighting constantly. Whenever you build out these engineering teams, they want to build, they want to grow, they want to innovate and those types of things. But instead we were focusing all of our time on, oh, it's broken again, or this thing isn't working right, or it's really slow in these areas, and we were losing millions of dollars because of it. And so it was really unfun and not great. And I've got stories that I'll share about it, the trauma.
Well, was there like a tipping point where like a moment where like we can't do this anymore? There's got to be a better way.
Yeah, there was. One of our senior leaders, Matt Spessard, our CIO, had coined the phrase, never waste a crisis. That was his favorite thing to talk about. So when we had these outages, it was, how can we not waste this crisis? What does that look like? How can we engineer something a little bit differently? How can we remove these bottlenecks and what that looks like and go through it? And so there was a lot of that. We anchored a lot of our life on the Phoenix Project itself, a book by Gene Kim. If anybody's not familiar, go read it. Spoiler alert, it's been out since 2013, so we're going to talk a little bit about it today.
What's interesting about the Phoenix Project is it reads like a novel.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's
highly relatable as you walk through Bill Palmer and his life, but it really focuses on 3 areas. It talks about feedback loops, it talks about flow, and it talks about innovation and growth, and how you can do that with your team. So
feedback loops, flow, innovation, and growth. Yeah. I think the one that's not intuitive from that is flow.
Yeah, flow is how you get your operations and your engineering teams to work together to identify where it's breaking, what it looks like, and how to remove those bottlenecks. Because that's really what the book focuses on, is the bottlenecks itself and identification of those. It goes back to the art of the why, if anybody's familiar with that. It's really the identification of what is my problem, and then providing solutions from there. So first you got to identify what that problem is and those bottlenecks within the system.
Okay. So you talked about being a culture of firefighting, and then you want to be a culture that's like working ahead and planning what you're doing. But you're just like, oh, I switched from one to the other, and it's not that easy. Like you have to, when you're firefighting, it's just like you can't not waste the crisis.
Yeah.
Because you have another crisis. You don't have time. So how do you get ahead of firefighting to even make space for innovation?
Yeah, there's a lot of that. First, it starts with trust. A big part of our culture is trust but verify. It's what it used to be. We've since shifted that. We say trust and verify. The reason is because in the English language, the word but means forget everything before it and only focus on the end. So we wanted to shift away from the idea of just verifying to trust and verify and what that looks like. And that's really how our culture permeated. So that was step one, is trust. You have to get trust in order to do anything. My favorite story to tell about this is my second day working at Wendy's. I had a meeting with the CIO at the time, and he said, I want you to tell me everything about the digital ecosystem. Take me through the architecture, tell me everything about how it works. And day two, I don't know if anybody in here has tried to do that, but like you just can't. And so I got in the meeting. I had been talking for like 3 or 4 minutes, beautiful slide of this architecture diagram that I very vaguely understood. And he just stopped me and he said, I don't need to know this. I just want to make sure that you do. And what that really relayed into me is that all he was looking for was trust in his people, that he could put the right people in the right seat to push in the areas that he wanted us to.
And sometimes earning trust is saying, I don't know, and you don't. I don't know, but I'll figure that out for you. Or I don't know, but I'll find the person who does know.
Exactly. Yeah, it's transparency and what that looks like.
So you're saying earn trust, and you have this example, but like, what's an actionable step for people here today to earn trust at their companies?
Yeah, I'll use an example of that. So we had a database that we were having live on-prem while all of our services lived up in the cloud. If anybody's tried to have a transactional store on-prem that you're piping applications to it constantly to read and write and transform the data, it just doesn't work very well. Anything could happen, slow down on that on-prem database, internet goes out, power goes out, a million things can happen between those 2 points. And that happened to us. Internet got cut. There was some construction going on a couple miles away, chopped the fiber to our headquarters. We didn't have internet for that period of time. And so talking with senior leadership of like, hey, we can't do anything till the internet's back up. What do you guys want us to do? They were like, well, what can we do? And so we'd already laid out all of our plans of what it looked like for us to get this database off of on-prem and up to the cloud. And it was a don't waste a crisis moment where we got to say, we got this, let us go. And 2 days later, we had the entire database moved up, completely re-architected for how the services were communicating with it and running from there.
So when you're making don't waste a crisis actionable, it's like be researching other solutions.
Yeah.
As you're firefighting or as you're working with what you already have.
Exactly, yeah.
So that you're ready you're in position to not waste a crisis.
Because those moments of pain, people are willing to give you a little bit more leash or money in a lot of instances of, we'll go ahead and pay for these things. And it's very helpful from that perspective whenever you just want to make the system better, but you're fighting between new features and rolling out new things that product ownership groups want, but you still have all this technical debt that's sitting there.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, but we need to take care of this. And how do you have the conversation of, let's spend 30% of our bandwidth doing just tech debt remediation, and how do you prove that out to them so that they allow for those types of things to happen?
I have a kind of related question, which is, okay, you have something that's pretty good, that's like reliable. Yeah, how do you justify, I'm going to wreck this so that I can make something great?
Yeah, it's really hard when you're in that comfort zone.
Yeah.
Me personally, I struggle with that a lot of times
in my
too.
personal life, 100%.
It's like, this is fine. It's okay. And that's where we were with that database example too. Like it worked. It was fine until it didn't work. And it was really hard to get the momentum behind that. So in that example, we got to use the crisis to help push that forward. And other times it was, we had already built the trust up. So if anything you hear today, besides just the technical bits of it, it's going to be how to build trust with your partners to allow you to do the things that you're built and good for. And that's really where we anchor down, is you first build the trust, and the actionable with that is, hey, you already know that I know what I'm doing. Let me go do this and prove it out and show it. There was times where we had to do it late at night. Hey, we're going to make this big change. We don't think it's going to cause downtime, but we're going to go ahead and do it 2 o'clock in the morning when nobody's really going to know about it, and then we'll come out on the other side and be like, woo, we did this.
Okay. So when you say build trust, you're building trust with your stakeholders, or the people paying your salary.
Yeah, but when you talk about stakeholders, it comes in various forms. It's not just your boss. It's not just the technology group. It's the marketing group. It's the finance. It's the legal. It's your end customers. It's the crews at the store for us. There's a lot of different facets for what those stakeholders look like and how you interact.
Why do you care if you have the trust of finance and marketing?
Yeah. If you don't have the trust of finance, you're probably not going to get the money to do the things that you want to do. As we all know, that all costs money. I need to spin up a new server here. I want to do a new database. I need to pull in contractors, whatever that looks like. So you have to get them to establish, like, okay, they really know what they're doing. And part of that is reflecting with them, letting them know, like, I want to be visible with you. I want to be vulnerable with you. I want to be visible into what we're doing with you, and have those conversations where we were doing weekly touch points with our finance partners. Hey, here's what we're doing. Here's what we're moving. When they felt like they were part of the program, it made a lot of things easier. Marketing was the same way. Whenever you're talking about, we want to build a system, our digital ecosystem, for instance, that we want to drive traffic to. Well, technology doesn't drive the traffic there. You got the marketing people that are going to do the offers and the rewards and the commercials and to drive traffic. And so if they don't have faith in you and the systems that you guys have been building,
if they think the website's going to break, they're not going to do
they're not going to push anything
to try to get everyone
absolutely.
to go to the website. That makes sense. When you're doing this transformation, do you take baby steps in the direction you want to go, or are you looking for like maximum impact? I feel like there could be 2 ways to go about it.
And the great answer to that is they're both very accurate ways to do it. It depends on the amount of trust that you've built up and the team that you have behind you. I personally like to do the small baby steps, and the reason for that is that's what builds your trust. When you do those little tiny incremental things, people say, oh, that went well. It's no longer we're not sure. Instead, it's oh no, they got this, they can do this, and you build that up to where you can do the high impact things.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that hopefully here in a little bit about moving from one cloud provider to another and things like that that are really big impact moments that were built on those trust blocks underneath.
Trust blocks. I like it.
I'm coming up with all sorts of things today.
So you talked about, like with Phoenix Project, and a couple of times now you've said the word bottlenecks, and we talk about like high impact, find the bottlenecks, solve those bottlenecks. Yeah. How do you find those bottlenecks?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why we're here today, right?
Observability is
Observability is the reason. So to take us back a little bit, I can talk about like the progression of what that looked like for us. So 5 years ago, whenever I came in here and was evaluating what systems we had, observability was a word that was thrown around a lot that didn't mean anything. Observability is really your visibility into what things are and what they're looking like, and using that telemetry data to bubble it all up, and we had none. We were paying for a service, but that service didn't align with the way our platform was built. I don't know if you guys have ever struggled with that, but whenever you have a cloud-based system, but you're using a service that was built for on-prem workloads, and what that looks like running vCenter and things like that, it's not going to look the same and not going to stitch the data together the same. So the first thing for us was we need some type of visibility. Hard stop. Get us something. So worked with vendor partners, found someone that aligned closely with their product with what we had, so that we could get some of that visibility into the system.
Yeah.
And that worked really well for a period of time, because what it started showing us was, here's this big failure point, here's this big slowdown, the things that we couldn't see very well, and you couldn't really glean from logs all that well, the latency between certain things. And so it really helped us provide that foundation to it. The problem was the product began to differentiate away from how we were moving with our platform and where it was going. And that's why we're here today with Datadog, is we said, hey, we need somebody that can come in here and really help us push for the future. We're stable now. We've got this foundation. Things are okay.
Letting go of something okay,
They're totally
the chance
fine.
Of something better.
But what does better, what does great look like? And that's when we met Datadog and started working with you guys to say, what does this look like? How can we see it? And it's been incredible to see how a tool and a system that shows you the actual bottlenecks, after you've cleared out what you thought was all of them, really helps to push you further.
Can you describe a little more tangibly something that you couldn't see before that Datadog helps you now see?
Oh man, I will give you the perfect example. It actually happened a couple hours ago.
Oh, nice.
So
heck yes.
it's pretty good. So we noticed this morning that our front-end website was scaled up to its max available pods for it. It's a progressive web app. We just moved it over, so we're still trying to figure out what it looks like. We have Datadog RUM instrumented in that. And so whenever...
Real user monitoring.
Oh, real user monitoring, yeah, great.
For, yes,
It basically shows us the whole picture from the very front of what the people are doing all the way down to the database level. We can stitch entire calls together to see the whole system. And so the team gets on there and say, hey, we got this alert, we have this scaling that's very abnormal. Is there something going on? They pull up Datadog, and on the right-hand side, it's giving them a summary of, hey, this is scaled up, here's why we think it's scaled up and all the things. And what was cool is it went through and it said, we think this is not an attack, because that's one thing we're always worried of, is if we're going to get hacked or attacked or anything like that. But instead it was, we think this is organic traffic, here's the different browsers it's coming from, all the things. Oh, by the way, we looked on the internet and we found that you guys are doing a Frosty offer today for cookie dough Frosties, and we think that's driving the traffic. And we were actually able to stitch everything together via Datadog's AI integrated tool right there.
That looked at on the open web to figure out.
Yeah, which was unbelievable. I didn't know it had the capabilities, and then the team is talking about it this morning. I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
That is so cool. But like, in the moment of deciding whether to switch or how to switch, like, how do you know how to be forward thinking about what your observability platform could do, or what any technology can do? How do you know what you don't know in terms of what you don't have that you need to have to make your system better?
Yeah, so in the iterations up to this, we found these unknown knowns, and they were great. And then we were like, okay, everything's great, like, stuff's running, it's fine, there's all of that. When we moved to Datadog to show us our unknown unknowns, and what that looks like, it allowed us to dive in way deeper into the system. So we're starting to dive into traffic patterns between calls. So when we talk about microservice world and how these containers are going to communicate, what we noticed is we actually had some containers that were calling outside of the cluster just to come back into the cluster to talk to another service. That's not beneficial for anybody, but it's not something that we could see before. And so it's like, hey, you need to go fix these applications. And it turns out that somebody was just calling a wrong URL for it. Rather than just saying, go talk to this service, it was go talk to this full domain of that. And it's just popping out and back into the cluster. And those are those unknown unknowns that they're those little tiny little things that you can do, but make the system significantly better and stronger.
I have a sense that things are a little slower than they should be, and I can't quite see why. So I'm going to expand the capabilities there. Cool. During your transformation journey, was there a moment where you were like, wow, this is actually working, we're doing it?
A few years ago, we had a big campaign with a third-party deliverer. They decided to call this thing the Power Hour, and it was going to be 1 hour where it was going to be free delivery and like a really big discount off of your order. And so it was going to drive massive amounts of sales. They had millions of dollars saved up of, hey, we're going to spend all of this on that thing, and we're going to do this. And this was really the first test of the system. We were about 18 months into our complete redo of the system to make it actually stable. And so we had built up enough trust that marketing said, hey, are you guys okay with this? And we're just like, yeah, that'll be great. We'll try it.
Sure, let's do it.
And it just so happened to hit that they want to do this Power Hour during March Madness. If anybody's a basketball fan, you've probably seen the Wendy's commercials that happen. It's a really big time for us. We do a lot of sales. And so we were like, all right, we're going to do our biggest sales weekend and this Power Hour at the same time on a system that is largely untested. Whew. We got this. And so we did a bunch of performance testing ahead of time and said, hey, we need to pre-scale and all these things. And so we did that. We jumped on a call. It was a huge cross-functional call between marketing and finance, technology. We even had third-party vendors there, all on this call to watch the system happen and be able to react as it was going to break, because we just knew it was going to break. Yeah. And we got on, and the Power Hour kicked off, and things just worked. And we're like, all right, that's just been a couple minutes, like, we'll wait and see. And then things just kept working and kept working and kept working. And we made it all the way through. And we were able to do in that 1 hour what they expected us to do across like a 3-day period. They ran out of all their funds for this promotion. Wow. Because the system just worked. And so during that, we're all like virtually high-fiving each other and like, oh my gosh, this worked. And like, it really gave us that like foundational layer of like, wow, like we've done this thing, it's here, it's been awesome.
We've been talking about earning other people's trust, but you like earned your own trust.
I had to, absolutely, yeah, because we had just finished some of these things and we're like, oh, we're gonna see, and everything just worked. It was amazing. So everybody on the call, we were so hyped, that adrenaline was pumping through us that the vendor said, hey, let's do it again tomorrow. And we're like, ooh, okay, yeah, we feel great about this now. Let's do it again tomorrow. The problem was tomorrow had a 24-hour lead time up to it of people knowing it was coming. And so when that power hour on day 2 kicked off, our system was churning and running fine, but their service did not on the front end. So that third-party delivery provider, their entire platform went down for that hour. And we like to tell people that Wendy's took it down where nobody could order QSR during that period of time.
That's incredible. When wins like that happen, well, first of all, how far along in that technology journey was that?
Yeah, that was only about 18 months into it. This is a 2023 timeframe.
Did you like announce to everyone, we're gonna shake things up around here? Or did you just kind of quietly do it?
We just kind of quietly did it.
Okay.
We built that trust with our product ownership group. That was the very first one that we targeted of like, we're gonna build the trust really well with them. And what that allowed us to do is take the bandwidth away from feature dev, which at the time was 100% of all bandwidth went towards feature dev and pushing out new things and new things and new things. And we said, hey, we really need about 30%. And so we took 30% and said, we're gonna focus on this tech debt and here's what we're gonna do with it. But we made it easy and visible for them. We tracked all the cards on Jira, we invited them to stand-ups, we invited them to retrospectives, all these fun, agile words. They were there as partners on the journey and not just people that we had to update occasionally. And what that meant is we actually went all the way up to 50% at one point in time focusing on tech debt because they saw the huge benefits that we could get with a stable platform to help out.
Cool. So when you have a win like the Power Hour win, like how do you celebrate that?
Yeah, celebrating is the hardest. You know, at first everyone was like, oh, let's have a pizza party or let's do cake or whatever. And in a remote world where we're all in different areas.
Frosties for everyone.
Frosties for everyone. So we do a lot of virtual celebrations. So a lot of that comes in the form of we just talk about it. You know, the trenches of where we've been and where we've come and reminding ourselves where we were. We also do a lot of just like randomly sending somebody some food. There's a lot of that too. Frosties will literally show up on people's door of like, hey, I'm thinking about you, you did great work, and things like that, which has been fun.
I like the idea of punking my friends by just having fast food show up on their doorstep. So let's dig in more to the technical side of things. We've been throwing around the term platform engineering, but I think that means slightly different things to everyone. I mean, it does mean like providing capabilities internally to your developer teams, but like what those capabilities are, I think varies a lot between teams.
Yeah, very much so.
So what is platform engineering for Wendy's?
The easiest way I describe it to people is platform engineering is the embodiment of the DevOps culture. There's a lot of books you can read. DevOps Handbook, Phoenix Project is another great one. Hashtag Gene Kim, he's great. That you can look at. And it's really the embodiment of the culture of what it looks like. The vulnerability, the trust, all the things. At Wendy's, we have that anchored in our platform principles, and that's how we approach everything. So our first one is obviously automation. Everything that you do has to be automated.
I'm going to enter, like,
yeah, let's do it.
These platform principles are Wendy's specific. So y'all came up with these. Cool.
Yeah, we use the brain trust of what do we want platform engineering to be? What are the things that we want our systems to look like? And how can we anchor in these principles? These are largely untouched, meaning that when we instantiated them about 5 years ago, they remain consistent today. We still use the same ones. We're not changing them or those types of things.
I was talking with a friend who wrote a book, The Octopus Project, and she was saying she interviewed leaders all across a lot of successful companies, and one thing they all do is communicate with clarity about what their company's principles are. And so I love that you're doing that here. So with further ado, bring it on. Tell us
technology needs their own principles, and that's how we anchor this. So our very first one that we do is automation. If you want to build a system that's resilient and reliable, and doesn't wake you up at 2 o'clock in the morning, you have to automate everything. If you have the manual aspects of your platform, it's not going to work great. What that looks like for us is instantiations of new databases or a new Redis cluster or things like that are all automated. We prioritize discovery and recovery over eliminating downtime. We build a system that we expect to fail. And so the only way you can do that is you need to discover when it fails, what's this new way that it failed? How can you prevent this in the future? And maybe design your system better where those types of failures don't happen again. So we really do prioritize discovery and recovery over eliminating downtime. What that looks like in reality is when you have those incidents happen and people are sweating and, hey, we're losing money and all of those things, you find out what broke, and instead of immediately jumping to, we're going to fix it right now, you communicate with stakeholders and let them know, hey, here's what's going on, all the things. We have some more troubleshooting we need to do. And you go do those things where we'll actually discover the rest of the system and where other bottlenecks are. It's crazy. Whenever you have one thing fail, you can find out other areas that are having issue.
Never waste a crisis.
Never waste a crisis. It's awesome. We also focus on buy versus build. I know that's a pretty big topic for a lot of folks. We choose to build our own technology when it makes competitive sense for us.
Yes.
We're not an observability company, so we just said, hey, we're not going to go and build our own observability platform. Instead, we're going to find a really great partner that can do that with us.
Does the buy versus build equation change with AI in the picture? I said it.
It probably is. Man, we still have 18 minutes left. It's okay. We're almost going to get through this whole thing without it. It does. We'll talk about that a little bit as we get to the end. But yes, it definitely does. And some of the strategic advantages that you may or may not be able to get with it. But that's with your whole system, too, of you have to look at it as this puzzle that you're trying to build. And the way you stitch this puzzle together matters. And your ability to take out a puzzle piece and put in a different one and what that looks like is impactful in what it be. So we've made it through 3 principles.
Okay, automation, discovery, recovery over...
eliminating downtime.
Eliminating downtime.
Buy versus build when it makes sense.
Buy versus build, okay.
Release independence, the ability to release code all the way through to production without releasing the feature itself. So we want to be able to release code as often as possible.
How often do y'all release code?
We've probably released 5 releases since we've been talking here.
Really?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, 4 or 5 about there. And that's because of our last principle probably is going to be self-service. Oh, I said last principle, there's one more. Self-service is where when our platform team builds something, they build it in a way that the developer can just do it. So when we have a new application that's going to be onboarded, the developer doesn't have to come and say, hey, who can pair with me so we can go build out this database in this way with these specs or this Redis cluster, these other things. Instead, it's, hey, I need something. I'm going to go fill out this area here that I need to. And whenever I submit that code to our repository, the pipeline's going to pick it up and automatically all the dependencies that you need are built out with it.
So how does the developer know to do it in the first place? Is there education built into the...
There is 100% education. We're very focused on what our documentation looks like. And for every new developer, we do an onboarding session from the development side and from the platform side. So they get a full, well-rounded view of what all we're working at. We also do this really fun thing. It's called tours of duty, where you can actually move from one team to another for a period of time. So we'll have developers say, I want to go be on the platform team and I want to work on this project because this is something I'm passionate about. It's a new feature or a new service offering of the platform that I need. And so I'm going to go over to the platform team for a bit and I'm going to build it with them, which has really helped with the context around how the system works and that tacit knowledge that we want to build up within our group.
I think that's a cultural achievement too, because that means between teams you're speaking about different services within the company in the same way.
Exactly.
You have the same underlying technologies that you're using, yeah.
Exactly. And then the other thing that we do to help out with the context around it is we do a lot of pair programming. What that looks like. Today it looks a little bit different than it did about 5 years ago. Pair programming 5 years ago was, hey, me and said developer, let's jump on a call, let's work through these things.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're working on different tickets at the same time, but we're communicating what our changes are and what they look like. Today it doesn't necessarily mean people. Since we already have broken that seal on the AI, sometimes that pair programming that we're doing is with an AI agent directly and what that looks like.
Very cool. You mentioned failing on purpose, or at least not being afraid of it.
Yeah.
Do y'all do chaos engineering? Or we should probably define chaos engineering just in case not everyone knows what it is.
Yeah, chaos engineering for Wendy's, for us, it means that we intentionally break parts of our system all the way up into production. To see how it works. The biggest reason for that is we want to make sure that the guardrails within our platform that we've put in place are there and they're working. New dev comes in, they don't know exactly how they're supposed to interact with a caching system, and so they rely on that cache to be available, else the application dies. Well, we all know that if you're using a cache, That's the fastest way to get the information, but not the last way to get the information. So building in that fault tolerance within our applications is helpful, and the way we do that is we just knock down parts of our system. We go through our Kubernetes clusters, and we're killing nodes every 2 minutes in production constantly.
Really?
Karate chop, yeah, we got a whole lore around it. It's called top rope, and it's gone immediately and what it looks like. And it's allowed us to, one, save costs, because we can move to spot instances at that point, because our system is built for it. But two, it makes sure that we're not dependent on one version of an application or one connection to here and those types of things. And it's really pushed our development practices as well into what the future looks like and how to do it in a better way.
So you automate failures into your system.
100%, yeah.
Wow. And then observability must be an important part of that.
we put it in production without permission. It's one of those like ask for forgiveness kind of a things. And once it started working and people saw it, they're like, oh, we get it. This is fine. Yeah, we understand this now. And that was part of that trust of like those big impact moments that we just kind of like did. And then the trust that was built on top of that as well.
Very cool. So I think when I think of observability, the first thing that comes to mind is troubleshooting. But now you've used it in chaos engineering in this.
Yeah.
What are some other forward-thinking ways that you rely on observability?
Yeah, the cool part now is with the integration of AI and what that looks like is there's this next maturity level that we can do with some of the telemetry data and how it can say, hey, these parts of your system are totally fine. And from a normal architecture principles, practices, they're great. But they could be better, and here's how you can do it. And so really pushing on our system in areas of like, hey, everything's fine, everything's great, we think you could do these things, and AI bringing that to us directly and really pushing our thoughts of what is the box and what does that look like has been super helpful. I know that for me, my box is purely based on my experience. So when I'm designing a system, it's going to be systems that I've built in the past, and here's what it looks like, and this is my box. And AI doesn't live in a box. It doesn't have these experiences, so it really pressure tests a lot of those to give us the best systems we can.
It has all of the experiences.
All of them, yeah.
And none of them. So you're doing a lot of cool stuff. How do you define success?
This is hard. Most of us in here are familiar with like normal KPIs. Our title today had a KPI and availability. And that's one way that you measure things. But the problem is they only get us so far. So what's the difference between 99.5 and 99.6? From a human perspective, we see one little tiny number at the very end move, and we're supposed to celebrate that. That's a little tough. It doesn't move the needle very well. It also isn't motivating for our internal teams.
Yeah.
Hey, great, I don't really care about that one number and what it looks like because we have all these other things that we want to push and do. So success for us looks like the KPIs, obviously, that we have, MTTR and all the normal ones you're expecting, trending in the right direction. We want to make sure that those are continually going up. We want to make sure that our system is growing and getting better. It also means that we're looking at new KPIs based on the new system that's created and what it looks like. So we're constantly looking at, okay, do we need to start measuring latency in these areas, or do we need to do these things? And so we're still sticking with that KPI metric. But there's a step beyond that we love. It's my favorite thing to talk about. It's DORA metrics. Has anybody heard of DORA metrics before? A few of us? All right. Nathan Harvey is here. Go find him. He's somewhere on the expo floor.
Do you know what the acronym stands for? It's like DevOps Research.
It used to be an acronym. It used to be an acronym,
it's not
but
an
not
acronym
anymore. It's just DORA. DORA is now DORA. But it's really harnessed into what does DevOps look like in your company and how can you measure it in a highly effective way for your teams. And really what it does is it compares you to yourself in the past. So past David compared to present David and how that continues to grow. So I highly encourage everybody to go find the DORA metrics booth or find Nathan Harvey. He's going to be walking around in an avocado shirt or cheetahs or something super fun and loud and vibrant, and talk to him a little bit about it. We actually brought Nathan in where him and his team were able to do some DORA things with us and help us grow and identify what is our baseline from that perspective. So when we talk about DORA, there's four main categories that we're looking at. The first one is going to be deployment frequency. How fast are you actually doing these deployments? What does it look like? That's one way that we do it. The next one that we look at is lead time to change. How long until we're able to get that all the way into production, and what does that look like?
So from a change, like from inception to getting into production?
All the way to the end, yeah.
Cool.
Which is helpful because now when our business partners come and say, hey, we need this thing, how long? Well, we already have the metrics for it. We know about how long it takes those types of things to do. So it's really changed the conversation. And because we make all these visible to the company, it's available sitting up in our document store, and anybody at the company can look at them. So deployment frequency, lead time to change, change failure rate is something else that we measure of what does the failure aspect look like when roll back or roll forward.
How often do your changes fail?
Exactly.
These ones that you roll out so frequency.
Exactly, yeah, because you have to. That's what it looks like. And then the last one is going to be that more NTTR type thing. It's the time to restore. What does that look like when you do have those failure points, and how quickly can you do that? Those are the 4 things that we do, and it's this small scale, but it's literally we just every year we go through and we do the DORA exercise to say, are we getting better in areas? Should we be getting even better in areas? What's that delta between the two, and how do we continually push those forward?
So bringing it back to like actionability, DORA gives you those 4 ideas of what success are.
Yeah.
But there's also a DORA community, and it seems like you're going through DORA exercises.
Yeah.
Like what is the actionable part of DORA?
Yeah, so my favorite is just to go talk to them. That's why I tell everybody, just talk to Nathan Harvey. But that team will actually spend time with you and talk to you about what it looks like. And they'll go through hey, here was your scores of what it looks like here. Here's what it was last time. Here's what this tells us. And they're actually building a community around that where you can actually talk to other people that are doing the same DORA type things. So you're not just comparing yourself to your past self. You can compare yourself to other companies, get better ideas of, hey, we really like how your lead time to change has drastically changed over the last 12 months. What does that look like for you? How can you do it better? And getting plugged in where you can understand how other people are doing it in a better fashion.
So the external resources you really liked are the Phoenix Project and then DORA metrics. And then in preparing for this, you also mentioned Google Well-Architected Framework, which is something I hadn't heard about before.
I don't know that it's super well known. Does anybody know Google Well-Architected Framework? Has anyone gone through that? I see 2 hands maybe.
Yeah.
So Google Well-Architected Framework is something that we did at the very beginning of our Google journey. This is back in the bad times, if you will, of whenever we were really struggling with is our system going to run kind of a thing. But it really takes you down to here's how to run in a highly effective way on Google. The things that I loved about it is they push for design for change. So chaos engineering being one of those, and what that looks like and how you're designing your system. They push you on some of those areas. They look highly for simplification. Don't build highly complex systems if you don't need a highly complex system.
Yes.
Especially if you're going to be, keep it simple. That's the best way to do it. And so simplify, 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 and then how to decouple your architecture. And that's when we get into some of our platform principles about release independence. How do you deploy code versus releasing a feature? And what does that look like in an effective way?
Very cool. And then something else you've done that I find very interesting, all throughout my time in tech, it's all been multi-cloud, multi-cloud, multi-cloud. We don't avoid vendor lock-in, make sure you diversify. What if something goes down? You're all in one cloud.
Yeah.
You'll never guess which cloud. Say more about that, how you came to make that decision and what it means for you.
Yeah, I mean, vendor lock-in is still a thing. I think everybody will get that, but you have to understand of which level of vendor lock-in you want it to be and want it to look like and what complexities you're wanting in your system. I'm a big proponent of prove to me that you can get a single cloud methodology correct before you ever talk to me about multi-cloud, and really focusing and honing in on there of what it looks like and how to do it in an effective way. So the reason I like it is because of that, is you're going to gear towards simplification of your system.
Yeah.
Also, I would say that most people don't really need multi-cloud. Multi-region is much more palatable. A lot of execs around and people that are tangential to engineering say, oh, well, we have this thing called Terraform, and you write it once and you can deploy it anywhere. But that's not how Terraform works at all. Because how you instantiate a EC2 on Amazon and a virtual machine on Google looks different in Terraform code. It's not like you just run the same thing and it's going to build it out depending on which cloud you want to point it at. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
And so there's some ideas that you have to divorce with people in understanding of how it works, but also there's just no reason to. I don't like the complexity. DNS routing. There's also a point of if I'm sitting in AWS and GCP, running my system and AWS goes down, so all my GCP stuff is still running and we're great, I have vendors I'm likely leveraging that are going to be impacted by the AWS outage or things like that. We saw that this past year where we had a vendor that was doing that, and if we were using their system in a way that we hadn't been able to cut it off quickly, we would have been affected by it as well. And so there's other tangential fingers of, well, if we want to be multi-cloud because of all these reasons, we have to force every vendor to also be multi-cloud, and it just doesn't make sense for everybody.
So it's a vendor that you rely on is going to bottleneck you anyway.
Yeah.
So you might as well choose the bottleneck. And then you're working with a suite of products that were designed to work together when you are using cloud products.
Exactly, yeah.
That makes sense to me. Cool. Was it hard to implement? Or is it easy? Like, I guess you were talking about building trust the whole time. So you'd built the trust that you could use. And then, like, was there a migration involved? Did you start multi-cloud and then rein into one cloud?
We started with a distributed system. I'm gonna put it that way because it was largely living in AWS at the time and on-prem, and had a little bit of connection to Oracle Cloud as well. And so we had this distributed system of highly complex aspects to it that didn't really make sense. So we surgically did the migration live. We were driving down the highway in a Ferrari, and we were changing the engine out at the time. And so there was little components that we had to change. We're going to start with just changing out these hoses in these areas because it'll help us get in the future. And so choosing those small wins that we could do to validate what the platform looked like and how it ran before we did some of the bigger lift things that were going to be much more impactful.
It sounds like you're being smart and careful, but there's also some degree of gumption too.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of that. Yeah.
A little bit of bravado, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's next for Wendy's?
Man, this is where we talk about AI. We got 3 minutes left, so I guess we can actually go into it a little bit here.
Yeah, bring it.
So I'm a firm believer that AI is not the future. AI is the present, and it's the bridge that gets us to the future. And so we're still evaluating what really AI looks like, but I can tell you the approach that we're taking, that I know some other companies are, but a lot of companies aren't, is we're doing problem-focused first. So instead of just saying we have agents, we have AI, we have all these things, we're actually spending our time to identify what the problem is, and then identifying how does AI help us in this or not help us in that.
Okay. So are you using AI like for customer-facing stuff, or use it for, it sounds like you're using it for your development workflow, or using it for like internal tools?
Yeah, the answer is all of the above.
All the above. You're revisiting every problem, thinking about whether AI can be injected.
Yeah, if you Googled Wendy's and AI, one of the first articles you're going to get is going to talk about our drive-through ordering system. That's all AI-based. So we actually allow customers to interact directly with an AI at the edge, both in speech and text, to order their food at a Wendy's store. It's a really cool concept that we developed with Google over the last several years. And to get that out there, and it's because we wanted the customer, the problem at the time was, how do we make sure the customer's experience is always the same and they're getting exactly what they want? People have bad days. People don't want to smile all the time. And so an AI doesn't have those bad days. And so it allows us to greet people with a friendly voice.
The voice experience is a smiling voice.
Very much so, yeah.
Wow.
And so that's one of the ways, but also we're looking at what it means from our development perspective. I mean, it was great hearing Google yesterday talk about 75% of all of their code is developed through AI. I think that's where a lot of companies are pushing for and they want to go to because it's gotten so good over the last 6 months. And so we're doing a lot of those aspects of what it means for us, but we're starting at the problem. What is the problem? Because we don't want to just jump to, oh, we have this AI thing, it's in-house, we have a checkbox, senior leadership's going to be happy because we have AI. Instead, it's, here's our problem, what does this look like? Does AI help me? Some of those answers have been no, which was very surprising because AI is so good at everything these days. But a lot of them have been yes, but it's yes and here's what we need to do with it, and here's how to implement it in a better way. We've seen increased developer productivity, and what I was talking about this morning with the, hey, we have this app that's scaled up super high. Datadog using AI directly in their tool, that vendor part of your question, really helped us to say, oh, well, like, you guys didn't even remember that you had this marketing offering going on, and here's what's driving all this traffic. And not just that, it'll actually show us, like, these are the endpoints that are being hit. Here's what people are putting in their carts, so we can actually see that stuff live.
If you didn't have that agent telling you why things were happening, what would your experience have been?
The experience would have been, hey, we got this alert, things are happening, let me go post in the Slack channel over here to ask people if they know what's going on.
Panic a little bit internally?
100%, kind of back to that firefighting mode. The great thing is it wasn't like a break in the system. People were just like, hey, there's this thing happening, like, let's ask about it real quick. But it would have been, 45 minutes, an hour before getting to the right person in marketing that would have said these words, and it's like, nope, we got it all in about 10 seconds by reading this thing that says, hey, it's organic and here's where it's coming from with links to the articles and everything else. Just because our company moves so fast, technology can't know where we're going in every
We have
moment.
a few seconds left.
Yeah.
Let's do like a recap or a takeaway. Yeah, like
Yeah.
people looking to do this sort of transformation, what do you recommend?
Yeah, first is trust. That means aligning with people in your organization that have the right focus and attitude and willing to trust you and what that looks like. Moving into create those pillars that we talked about. Make sure it's done in the right way. I'm a big fan of Conway's Law, Phoenix Project, all of those things. Changing your organization, your culture is big with that. And then rounding it out to identification of a problem before just jumping to these highly complex solutions for a hard problem. What you'll see is you'll find a lot of hard problems and you want to go with a hard solution, and that's not always the right case to do. So really understanding your problem and understanding the direction you need to go with that keep it simple is the best.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. And all y'all, if you want to check out Datadog, please scan the QR code, come to the Datadog booth. We also have other Datadog talks, and thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.
Thanks, everybody.